All right, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Chadcast.
Yeah,
EP1.
I don't think that's gonna stick.
Pilot episode, but we'll figure out what the proper naming convention of that one is. Chadcast for now until a better name is found. We're here, excited to talk about many things. I'm gonna yap for a little bit. Anything you want to add before we?
Well, I was just gonna. I mean,
off?
actually, I don't think we talked about this, but like naming is hard,
Naming is hard,
and I think you kind of just
and it matters.
You just pointed it out right there. Like that's actually underrated topic. I don't know if we want to talk about that right now, but like,
I feel like it both simultaneously matters and does not matter, because like what you call it will stick, and what you keep calling it will stick.
Yeah.
But like you do want it to like make some sense.
Yeah.
And there's like Chad and I work at the same company, and that company has a multitude of services which are named interesting things, which like may or may not make sense in different contexts. And sometimes I wish that we could go back and rename them. So although Chadcast is the one we're throwing out here, maybe that's not the most appropriate. A quick anecdote. I feel like I should throw in the admin thing here. Like we have a service called admin, which just helps to like provision like user access and stuff like that. But when you're talking about admin, there's also like admin UI, and there's also a role called admin. So like you can be an admin of the admin app or an admin of admin.
Right.
Or like when you're talking about it, there's also like admin, like the database and like the actual like, compute behind the UI.
Yeah.
And that's also referred to as admin. So it's like, oh, we need to change like, the admin functionality in admin, also in admin UI. So it's just like saying things like that where there's just like complete term overload, which we wouldn't get with Chadcast in this case, but like you could potentially, you can see how naming is actually important. So yeah, great call out there.
Well, it's like if you go too specific, then you can't generalize.
Exactly.
But if it's too general, then you get into the overload arena where it's like now there's crossover with other things and features and subcomponents of the thing.
If we called this Chadcast, the podcast for backend developers learning Swift, then it's like topics are very limited.
Yeah. And then what if I want to build my own operating system that has its own AirPlay feature and I want to call it
Chadcast?
Then I can't talk about the Chadcast feature on the Chadcast.
That's fire, actually. It's patented airdrop.
Yeah.
Chadcast. Just Chadcast.
Better watch out,
dude.
Apple.
Just Chadcast it to me. It's Pied Piper lossless.
It's just branded airdrop. It's just like hyper branded airdrop.
Wait, okay, speaking of this, did you know that Bluetooth is like an organization?
What?
I'm going to sound completely uneducated talking about this, so I'm going to Google it. But like this whole time I thought, I don't know, Bluetooth was just like,
I guess it makes sense considering the name is like kind of marketing centric.
Hold up. Yeah, sorry. We're breaking out the perplexity here. Is Bluetooth a organization or is it just a technology? I'm going to make sure I get this right. I don't know, sound really stupid. I remember reading something weird that it was like...
It's probably both, but it started as a company who kind of pioneered it.
Bluetooth SIG, Bluetooth Special Interest Group, is the organization that oversees the development, licensing, and promotion of Bluetooth technology.
Oh my gosh.
Nonprofit organization.
Oh.
Not a company that manufactures or sells well, I mean, OpenAI was also nonprofit, so take that with a grain of salt. Not a company that manufactures or sells product, and it maintains its main responsibilities are to maintain and evolve the Bluetooth standard, certify products for compatibility, and protect Bluetooth trademarks.
I always thought that Bluetooth was like, do you remember as a kid, like Jawbone?
Yes.
The company?
Yeah.
Like that was so revolutionary. Like
dude,
people with earpieces, and I thought Bluetooth was a Jawbone thing for the longest time.
Okay, so Jawbone, I can't remember what book this is in. It's either in some like Clay Christensen or whatever, some like like that type of beat where it's like the Innovator's Dilemma type thing, and they bring up Jawbone multiple times because I guess Jawbone was like a first to market for multiple things. Bluetooth headphones was one. Bluetooth speakers was another.
Interesting.
And Jawbone has like absolutely no hold in the market in 2025.
That's crazy.
No one's talking about Bluetooth headphones. So I think the moral of the story, or no one's talking about Jawbone Bluetooth headphones. So they were the moral of the story was like being first doesn't really matter. It's like execution, and Jawbone for whatever reason.
Yeah, if you take the Mario Kart philosophy, it's like if you're in first place on the last lap, chances are you're not going to win. You're going to
get blue shelled. Yeah, and
someone else is going to be drafting off you.
Yep.
With a better item.
Yeah.
So it's like I don't know. I don't know that that's always true. I think you can be first to something and like still win, but
it's kind of like the Apple Play where it's like you're never. I don't know, like they're not first to market in almost anything outside of. I mean, even personal computer. That a lot of that was like Park Xerox type stuff that they were bring it
Played
in.
the long game, I guess.
But it's like you executed on it better, you messaged it better, you positioned it better, and then you took it. So shout out Jawbone. Any Jawbone execs that watch this, like I appreciate your effort.
You ate for a while there.
Yeah, you were there.
Yeah,
right idea.
I don't know how we got here.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah, we do have an actual agenda, and some specific topics that we wanted to cover, starting with building in public. But I guess maybe we should do just quick introductions before that, just to like build some credibility, build some rapport here.
Yeah. Well, I'm Chad. I'm a software engineer professionally about 3 years now. Working on a side project called Bookends.
Shout out Bookends.
Bookends is an iOS app, help you track your reading, build a reading habit. So I've been working on that with Andy. I've been having fun building that app, gathering some users, getting feedback and prepping for launch.
Yeah. That's what led us here to this podcast as well. I guess part of the reason we're here. So I also work on Bookends, not as much on the development side, although I have thrown in a couple PRs here and there.
Having PRs.
So don't discredit me. I'm not just an ideas guy. I did contribute.
The technical product.
My name will show up in the Get Blame at some point. But yeah, so I work in product, same company as Chad. Been there for 2 years or so. And then we've been building Bookends for a couple months now. Been really exciting. And we've learned a ton along the way, which is partly why we're here. And also Chad just has this itch to scratch where he's been writing a lot and trying to condense his thoughts and get them out to the masses. And I think the podcast is a great medium for that.
Yeah. There's something to be said about like working on something like this, like Bookends, and like all of the micro learnings that happen along the way. And like, there's not a ton of good outlets for that other than to just continue building and like putting all that energy into the app. Which is great, but like sometimes you just want to talk about it. You just want to yap. You just want to like, I'm not sure that it's just like, let me just dump everything that I've, been thinking about. I think there's a way to do that in a way that's digestible for certain audiences. And I think that it can be fun. I know I like to consume content like that. So hopefully I can help contribute to that space a little bit. So I don't know if you feel the same way.
No, absolutely. And I think we're excited to also, like, one of the first topics that we're going to talk about is building in public, and this is one way that we're kind of doing that. It's really interesting for like people that are applying to jobs and they don't have a lot of experience. One of the things that you harp on is like, oh, well, like you need to go have like personal projects, especially in software engineering, where it's like, if you don't have any experience, your resume just better be like packed full of like juicy personal projects.
Yeah.
And the personal projects are fun because like you learn a lot like while you're doing them. And I think our experience with Bookends has been, that leveled up because it's like all of a sudden we had, like real users that we were talking to all the time, and like real people giving us feedback. It wasn't just like, I built I don't know, what's a classic? Like I built a calculator app or something.
Like a to-do.
Something. I built a to-do app.
It's borderline.
Yeah, and deployed it.
It's like borderline that category.
Yes, I built a to-do app and deployed it on localhost, and that was my personal project. But yeah, so it's been really cool. We've learned a ton, and obviously, very excited to share that. And I think Chad kind of like expedited this because he's recently started his Substack. So follow along there for like really, really juicy dev thoughts. He put out his first one yesterday.
So juicy.
Yeah, we're going to get another one today. I think it's underrated. There's stuff that you don't talk about, or that like the dev, I don't know, almost like the business side, like does not talk about when it comes to like developer experience. And like that kind of stuff. Cause it's like, we both work in B2B SaaS, and it is like, I love doing what I'm doing, but it's like, it's a soulless, like the B2B market is not like an incredible, like, it's not like my whole life's goal was to build B2B SaaS, obviously. And so like, there's certain things that you don't get to like air out that we have thoughts about, like, how should, product be structured, and how should that role work, and how does that role interact with engineering, and vice versa on the engineering side, like how does that role work and what things to consider, and, like a lot of different things like that. So this is kind of like a public town square, if you will, for us to air our grievances as well as talk about things that we think are really cool. I think like in the public realm, like when you talk about building in public, one of the things that it forces you to do is to try to convey. There's a level of what's the word? Accountability.
when you're trying to convey an idea of like, someone needs to be able to understand this.
Yep.
And I think that that extra level of like thought and processing when you're coming up with a feature, or you're, prepping for, a conversation like this or a release email or something, that like extra layer of accountability and requirement set just forces you to take things a little like to the next level.
Yep.
And it's not to say that like if you're going to do something like build in public, which is really just broadcast your experience as a founder and a developer and a product manager, is like, it's not to say all your ideas need to be perfectly formed. I think it's just,
I think that's part of it. That's part of why it feels genuine. Is when they're actually not perfectly formed.
Yeah. And like be willing to get the feedback from the people, whether it be, maybe a little bit emotional or not. Like that vulnerability is healthy. And I think for me, it's what makes me a better developer, is when I'm able to like learn how to convey my ideas in a way that's not just echo chamber developer centric.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. I think there's definitely something to be said as well about, like, we had this discussion about writing when Chad first released his Substack. Well, I guess we were calling about it today.
Yeah.
But like, I think there's a lot of value in distilling your thoughts into something that you can convey to someone else.
Yeah. Distilling is a good word.
Like, exactly it's like, you got all this stuff that we're like constantly thinking about in this space that we kind of like play around in. And it's how do I like, I don't know, convey what I'm thinking about that certain thing. I think like, it's one of those moments where, like, they always say like, oh, when you're prepping a lesson, it's equally as important for the teacher as it is for like the student, because the teacher learns a lot while they're preparing the thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a similar exercise during writing, where it's like, I have all these unstructured thoughts that I need to kind of like put out into the world. And I also think it's great when you do it yourself and you don't have ChatGPT do it. So shout out to people who are out there writing real stuff, not just giving ChatGPT a bunch of bullet points and saying like, write this in a compelling way.
Yeah.
I think there's huge value in learning how to like kind of mold that yourself into a message that you can actually present to someone, have someone else understand.
I think you can tell right now, like maybe it'll be a little bit harder in the future, but it's kind of, for me at least, I think there's a smell test to like, is this generated text or not?
So
and part of the reason I feel like Substack platforms like that are cool is because it feels a little bit protected from that, because it's not as much of I'm trying to get traffic for advertising money, right? It's like, because it's the subscription, like people are paying for the quality of your content.
Yep.
You're not getting paid necessarily by number of views. I mean, obviously if you're getting more views,
there is some relationship between that, but
but I think the only way to get more views is to come off as genuine and organic. At least from my perspective, that's the feeling I get. And I think that like in the future, as AI generative creative content becomes more prevalent, like spaces like that will be more popular.
Yep.
For people who really do want to consume content. Now, there's a lot of people who don't want to consume content, and they're just on Instagram and TikTok because that's where you go these days.
With your AI gen slop, with your cappuccino assassinino slop. I love that stuff, to be fair. To be clear.
It's a good time, But like, there's also, there's a guy we work with who I think he has really good ideas, and Andrew Marquez, if you're listening to this, you know who you are. I guess I just doxed him.
Pattern Mount Rushmore.
But he always, like, he recently he shared a couple articles that he's read, or he seems to always have like off the top of that
he's got
like,
thoughts
and like super interesting takes on stuff, because he's read content that's like well thought out.
Yep.
And I think over my career, I haven't been super good at like consuming that kind of content. It's almost more like, well, this isn't helping me do things.
Yeah, you almost I'm watching tutorials, junk like that. It's like the thinking.
Yeah, I don't know at what point it was like, wait, there's more to this than just the doing. There's like the how I approach and the communicative aspects and the creative elements of all of it that aren't just the tactical, how do I write X thing?
Yeah, and I think that's what makes up like the other half of being good at any position is like there's like hard skills, but we're finding out with AI that like hard skills are not necessarily as defensible as they were before.
Yeah.
Right. And so like, what's the other half of that? It's like knowing how to like think about all of the other things.
Yeah.
Right. Like as a developer, your time isn't 100% just like writing code. You're also attending meetings and like various other things. And so like, there's more to consider. And so like learning to flex both muscles, there's a really good analogy, right? So like your bicep or really any muscle, right? You have a flexor on both sides, right? So when one muscle, like your bicep, for example, when your bicep is flexed, your tricep is relaxed. And when your tricep is flexed, your bicep is relaxed. And like, I can't do both of those things really at the same time,
right.
But like I have to do them both in order to get the whole thing to grow.
Right.
And so like, I have to spend time doing both of them. I think the original analogy was about like short-term versus long-term planning.
Yeah.
But I think it's a similar thing where it's like, I can flex hard skills all day long. And then I also need to spend time like flexing soft skills.
Yeah.
Get the big biceps.
Totally. I don't know how we got here once again.
Yeah.
I don't remember what the original subject was.
Yes. But we were talking about building in public. Chad, you've been thinking about this. Can you what are your thoughts about building in public? Explain to us what this is and what this means.
And maybe this is like an engineering, a more prominent thing for like solo indie devs. There's on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, you can find profiles dedicated to or dedicated from engineers who are giving a window into their development cycles for building an app or building a product. And there's actually a manifesto online called the Building in Public Manifesto, which kind of, outlines why this philosophy is cool, why it's impactful, and why you might want to do it.
Yeah.
And I've been inspired by some people on social media that are, building other apps that are in
building
similar
in
spaces. Also people doing B2B stuff, but a little bit more publicly. It's just like, it's fun. There's a lot more personality in the business, when you're trying to market it to a consumptory audience outside of just the product.
Yep.
Like you think of the big names in technology, and to me, they almost feel a little surgical.
What do you mean?
Like, if you think of like the Salesforces of the world, but I guess this is
shout
B2B.
out Mark Benioff.
like it's a product that does a thing, but if you were to try to talk about the character of the thing, I'm not sure that it's
soulless.
Yeah. And like, it's not to say they don't have
how hard Salesforce is trying.
Yeah. I think there's media and like commercials and advertising that like obviously has a message, but I think that message is like just doing a thing. Whereas like, I think building in public, you have the opportunity to like appeal to emotions as well.
Yep.
And also you're like, to participate in something with your peers without necessarily having them in the business, right? Like, I think there's opportunity for communication and dialogue and interaction when you're building in public that you would usually only get within the business with your co-founders or with your peers,
some dialogue about like what's going on and how you think about it. Yeah. And I think like Chad touched on this at the beginning, but, like it's really cool to have like that genuine relationship with your audience, because it's not just like this super clean presented shiny thing that I'm like giving to an audience. It's like, this is like this semi unstructured glob of like stuff that I'm toying with. And like, what do you guys think about it? Like we have, this just happened with, actually, did we? I can't remember if we talked about this. But basically for Bookends, we have like a dev newsletter that we send out weekly. And then we also have a Discord which has a lot of our active users in it, where they can like message feedback and stuff like that. And like sometimes when Chad and I have had ideas, we'll like throw it in the Discord and see what people think. The one that like came to me recently was audiobook tracking. And I think I included it in the newsletter from like last week or 2 weeks ago or something. And just saying like, hey, like we're kind of toying with it. And then maybe I'll put my foot in my mouth here, but I thought some people had also talked about it in the Discord. I can't remember, but like either way, I think that's a perfect example of like what at least I interpret this as, is it's like, there are users, we don't pay them any money. In fact, like they paid us to use the app, and I'm like, shout out
users, our goats.
But I'm like, I don't know like where I want this thing to go. Like, what do you guys think about it? And I think there's huge value in, I mean, like anyone will tell you that, like, it's if you can, as short as you can make the communication cycle between your users and the product, like the better it is. And like we're in a spot with Bookends where it's like, well, I can actually just message in Discord and I'll probably have someone respond within like 5 minutes. Like usually I know one specific person who will usually respond pretty consistently within like 5 to 10 minutes. But it's like, it's great to be like that close with your users, which is a luxury that I don't think Chad and I have always had, because
Not even
we've both operated in like B2B spaces. So like I was previously, before Pattern, I was at SAP, which is like a massive organization. And like, I couldn't name a single one of our customers, like, which is terrible. And like, granted, I was an intern, so like, you know, whatever, but like it was just a very, very different vibe. Like I felt very removed. And I think that has pretty major impact on both like the product and the engineering side, where it's like, I don't always know who I'm building for and why I'm building the thing, and I don't really know what they think about it. And product is obviously supposed to play some role in that, like helping facilitate that communication, but it's hard because of, you know, the B2B context. They're trying to work, and like they've got schedules too, stuff like that. And there's also just a completely different vibe, I think, in consumer goods, where we're like, people want to talk to us because they like the thing, and like people in B2B only want to talk to me because they hate the thing. It's like they only want to talk to me when it's bad.
Well, and the friction to be able to talk to support in a B2B environment is so much different. Well, maybe not in every case, but in our case, like, because we're able to do things like, you know, community Discord and comments on Instagram. And like our audience is relatively small, so like we're able to handle that throughput right now. But like, I think if anything, even if we were to grow, one of the places I would look at maintaining is like, well, I still want that presence, that support presence, and like that responsiveness, and the users feeling like they're in this with us. Instead of just like, we're giving them this thing and they're using it. You're
just walled off from
And like I've really enjoyed, it is hard, like if you use software and you experience a problem, your first reaction is not, let me find out who to talk to about this. You like fight with the thing, trying to get it to work for a while.
Exit out, refresh.
And then chances are you give up because you don't think that there's a way to talk to somebody.
It's not but it's like it's almost like the glass ceiling thing, where it's like you are conditioned to believe that the only way for me to fix this is to somehow get through to support, and like support is like usually very, very unhelpful.
And there's some like cryptic maze for contacting a human that is like zeros. I'm clicking zero,
representative,
agent, whether that's in a chat or whatever. And so I think like minimizing that barrier is a fun experiment that I'd be interested to see if we can scale. And like, it's so fun as a builder, as someone who's building this thing and coming up with ideas, to get that feedback in that way. Even if it's sometimes bad, like you want that. Even if the feedback is like, hey, this thing's not working for me, or like, heaven forbid we break stuff, because we do all the time. It's like, knowing it sooner rather than later is such a good thing, is such a blessing. And
we've also talked about like, it's really cool to see like, how much does someone have to love your product to like be so upset about something not working right that they will reach out to you for it? Because like we get the messages in Discord where someone's like, oh, I can't log in, my login's like busted or whatever, and we're like, oh freak, and like, you know, we both are working, and so like, it feels very negative when you first get it, but it's like, wait a minute, this person just wants to use the thing. And like, they're obviously so frustrated that they can't use the thing that they want to reach out to me. So it's like, it's almost like it's a very positive feeling where it's like, okay, never mind. Like I know you're not mad at me. I know you just want to use the thing, but it's hard because like in the B2B context, I feel like I only ever get, you know, reached out to from customers when they're like, give me a timeline on this thing, or like, you know, what, like this isn't working and you need to fix it. And I'm like, okay, let me go figure out how to fix it. So.
Bug reports are compliments just as much as they are indictments.
Someone loves your stuff enough to leave a review.
I think an interesting, going back to like the whole support and like being available for your customers, an extreme case study of this is Canvas and Instructure. They act like, the software of Canvas is open source. Like you can download it and run it on your computer, and like you can see all the source code. And the thing that they charge for, the way that they make money, is support. So the actual product that they're selling is like, hey, we recognize this software is like pretty complex and is used in a high stakes environment of like education. Maybe that's not as high stakes as other ones, but it's a little bit more like, there needs to be some guidance and like maybe not the most technical user base. So like, hey, here's this 24/7 available live support queue that you can pay for in tiers of like what your SLA, like how fast you're going to get a response. And like working there, it really was the product. Like we were trained, I was a support agent at InStructure for Canvas during COVID, and like the SLAs mattered, and like being, you know, available and resolving, you know, a certain amount of cases in a certain time frame was a big deal for the company, because that's how they were making money.
Yeah.
And I thought that's kind of a cool thing, because it represents what you value, which is the customer success.
Yep. Dang.
I don't know.
Clip that. We value the customer success. I love the customer. Shout out the customer.
Shout out the customer. Shout out our founding customers.
Shout out our founding customers.
In fact, this episode is brought to you by our founding customers.
You literally paid for this.
You know who you are. I'm not sure that that's repeatable in every business for every software model. Like storage is expensive.
Yep.
And like maybe also it's kind of weird if it's like, well, if I just make the product suck really bad, people will have to pay for support. So there's like a conflict of interest there.
That's not a metric you want to gamify.
Yeah. So there's a weird balance there. I don't think it works all the time, but it's just an interesting case study.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think one of the things that I'm noticing, we're kind of like looping around, is we were talking about building in public. And a lot of what we've talked about within the last like 5-10 minutes is interacting with users, which was like one of the first points that we have. We have our little agenda that's like right down here by Chad's foot. And one of the first bullet points in this section that I had written down was like creating an audience. And I think that is a key benefit of building in public. One of the things that Chad and I have talked about as we've built Bookends, I should say, as Chad has built Bookends,
shut up, bro. You're contributed.
He's
got commits in there.
Is that in some spaces, I would probably argue in more spaces than less, the feature set that you're going after does not matter as much as you think it does, because like features, I would argue features are very rarely defensible. And like I say that only having, you know, like a couple years of experience in the field. So like I'm sure someone's gonna contest on that, and that's fine. That's just my opinion. That like
safe space.
Features aren't super defensible because anyone can build a feature, right? Someone else could hire, you know, some equally talented engineers somewhere else and like build the exact same thing that we built. What we built is like feature parity pretty much with a lot of like existing apps. Yeah. But what made the difference, and I think there's the various other things which we won't touch on in this episode, but I think one of the important things that we've been trying to get after is like the relationship with the audience, which is what we've been talking about, and like creating this space where like they are actually coming along with us for the journey. It's not some offering that I am just like throwing out to them. It's like they are helping us build the offering as we go, which I think has been really, really cool. We kind of talked about some of the other benefits of that, like the tight feedback cycle between like us and our users, which has been awesome. And then like, you know, helping them through bugs and kind of being their support line and stuff like that. So like, I think it's been really, really cool to feel like this is a journey that we've all been going on together, as opposed to like we built something and then we put it on the app store and then we hope that people download it. Along those lines, kind of like the long-term benefit that I can think of is distribution. Kind of why I brought up the feature thing in the first place is like the features themselves aren't super defensible. What is really the killer for like consumer applications, in my opinion, is the distribution. And so figuring out how do I get this thing in front of as many people as possible in a way that is like genuine and convincing and compelling enough that someone would want to pay for this thing. Like that's actually the harder part. It's not like the building stuff. We talked about like hard skills are now like the barrier to entry for like hard skills and things like what we're doing. It's like continually getting lower. And right now is like the worst AI that we're ever going to have. Right. So you can expect it to get lower and lower and lower. But what's hard is convincing someone else who's never met you, who's never used the thing before, to see enough value in the thing and actually like buy it and want to use it. And so that's like kind of the long-term play you get with creating an audience early and building in public, is that like you're bringing all these people along, and like as they follow because they actually enjoy the journey, then eventually you're making a much more compelling argument for them to turn into paying customers because they trust you. You already crossed like barrier number one.
Yeah. A lot of that process too is like sneakily emotional. Like I think that we would like to think as consumers of things, we're making very strategic,
intelligent, thought through purchases,
objective decisions about what's worth it.
Not me. I buy everything.
But the apps that I pay for on my phone are ones that feel good.
Yes.
Like, and I'm not sure, even as an engineer, I could sit here and tell you the exact feature set that makes me a paying customer.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit more abstract than that.
Yes.
And I'm okay with that.
Yep.
Like, and maybe that's a privilege. I recognize that like that is a privilege, but at the same time, I think you have to lean into that as a builder, as a developer, as a, even ideas. When you're developing ideas, like you have to think about how will this make people feel?
Yep.
Not just what will this allow them to do. And then the same with your marketing content. Like you can show off a feature, but chances are you probably need like 4 or 5 screens to do that well.
Yep.
And even then, like you're probably going to change that interface in 2 weeks. Yeah. Because you're moving fast.
The feature isn't what sells. Like it ticks me so off. I complain to everyone who will lend me an ear about this topic. If I see one more AI in the name of anything, I hate that garbage. It drives me nuts. Like this crazy investor pandering to like, please look at me, I have AI in my product, even though it's just like the most loosely related ChatGPT skin, like of something that doesn't really matter. Yeah. The first AI CRM, but really it's just like you get a chat bot in the corner that can like, I don't know, go find stuff for you. It's glorified search. Like the features just don't matter, but like what the people feel when they're using the thing and how they feel interacting with it and discovering it like this whole way through like the buying cycle and stuff like that really matters. And I think that's what makes it so sticky, or what can make a product really sticky is it's like the features, there's like this baseline of like, oh, the features are like good enough and everyone has these features, like it meets my needs, and then everything on top of that is like, not everything, obviously I shouldn't generalize, but like a lot of things on top of that are just like, I just like the way that this thing makes me feel, or like, oh, like they've been really good about this in the past, and like I'm gonna stick with them because I trust them to do that same thing in the future. Like they talk about that with, or like why I feel like it's Y Combinator I've heard this on, or maybe not, just like whatever kind of like investors will follow founders more than they follow companies because they trust the founders to do like good things over and over again. And I think it's like similar with your software. It's like if your customers know that you have a tradition of following through and like doing things well, it's like a very, very hard sell to get them to move to something else because they're like, no, I already like this thing, and they feel some attachment to it.
Yeah, I mean, the perfect example of that is the Apple ecosystem.
Facts, dude.
I mean, it's pretty hard for
talk about how people make you feel, dude. Apple users hated Samsung users with the blue message bubble.
Yeah, and it's almost like this is another thing too. Like the things that you love, you will pay for with a sense of pride. Yes, it's like I love Copilot Money, and Copilot Money, if you can hear us now.
If you can hear us, Copilot, if you can hear us.
Great iOS app. The inspiration for building native. Thank you.
Which was a great decision.
Yeah. Still figuring it out, but thank you.
Yeah.
But like, I can't even remember where I was going with this. The design and the feeling of the thing, is so good. Like it feels clean. And like I've sat in personal finance Reddit threads where people are discussing the trade-offs between X app and Y app. And I've sat there and tried to come up with this is why I think Copilot Money wins. And every time I write something out, it's incohesive and way too emotional.
Yep.
And I'm like, wow, I'm exposing myself here. But also I think I'm detecting that like, there's more to be said about how people feel about a thing than
There's a really cool there's a book by April Dunford called Everything is Awesome. I think that's what it's
Lego
called.
Movie?
Yeah, the shout out the Lego Movie. But it's definitely by April Dunford, and maybe I can like find the title. But
Phil Dunphy.
By Phil Dunphy. But she talks about, it's a book about positioning, and one of the things she talks about is like positioning only matters. And this is like a saying that you hear all the time in marketing, is like positioning only matters in the mind of your customer. And so like companies like you come out and you try and sling features left and right, and it's like, oh, well, this is what makes us we're AI powered, blah 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 blah. And it's like, honestly, dude, I don't care. Like that doesn't matter to me at all. I'm on the opposite side of like the money app thing from Chad. Like I've used Monarch, Rocket, Mint, NerdWallet.
Credit Card.
No, I haven't used that. But it's like I've used like 5 or 6. And
malformed opinion. You're not allowed to speak. You haven't tested them all.
But like I've used like 5 or 6 different money apps, and like I think I don't even remember the one that I use now. But like there's just like none of them like stuck with me. And I know the people on the other end of those companies, and I'm not like dissing these people, but like I know the people who were making those apps were like, oh, these are the key things, the key features that were like differentiators for us. Like this makes us so much different from like Monarch or like whatever. But I'm telling you, as a consumer, I did not notice. Like whatever it was, I apologize. I'm sorry. I know you worked hard on it, but I did not notice. Yeah. And like I think that's like, it is an uncomfortable truth in spaces like the ones we operate in with like Bookends, where it's a commoditized, user or like direct to consumer type application. And it's like, there's 1.5 million ways you could do this. And like the tiny little, whatever feature you're like pining over, like maybe it doesn't matter as much as you think it does. There's like other things that might matter. One of the things that I thought was interesting is we have this little graphic of a king in Bookends. And it's just like a little like what's the art style, like I
don't even know what you would call
Renaissance that. Like kind of like painted, like I don't know, that kind of vibe. Like powder wig looking type thing. And it's just a little king, and the little king shows up during onboarding and like during some other stuff, and it's just like a fun little like little whimsy little element. It's not a feature. Anyone can add that picture. We bought that picture off the internet. Like, isn't that free?
Yeah, it was free. So it's like in a Figma pack.
Yeah, so we got it from somewhere, and we've just been like using it, and people love it. People think it's so funny. Yeah. Like I had someone DM me on Instagram like 2 days ago, and was like they were doing the onboarding, and they thought it was so funny that they screenshotted it and sent it to me. And they were like, I saw this little king and I'm cackling. And I was like, what a funny little like that took no effort from Chad to like drop in this little picture of a king.
It was really hard.
Like to drop in this picture of a king and have some little text under it, like not a huge deal.
Right.
But it's like little things like that matter, and just make it like fun to use, and it like makes me want to stick around.
The craziest part about that feature too is like that came about.
We're calling it a feature now.
It's
a feature.
The aspect, whatever you want to call it, it's like that came about just like this was early days Bookends. We were actually in this room talking about like, oh, it would be cool if, and it was just like, oh, I'm picturing the onboarding experience, and there's like this little character bouncing around this, and like that just stuck in my head, and this was like a really quick attempt at that, and it just like organically became a thing,
and it's fun.
People and it's like it. It's just personality. And I think about like, I don't know that all companies have failed at like the personality thing. I think there are good examples of like
all B2B companies you've failed. I know for a fact you failed. I look at your stuff all day long.
But I even think
you suck.
We're not even get started there. That's a whole other episode. There's like even in developer software, I think of like open source software and the way languages were named 10 years ago versus, or I guess 20 years ago versus the last 10 years. Like, and you think about like every language that developers use, almost all of them have like a little symbol, like a little icon. And like, I think of Go, like the little beaver or whatever. I don't even know what it is.
Shout out my Rustations, dude. Back when I was in college learning Rust.
And like that stuff it's so silly, but it's the emotional thing you hold on to as a fan of something.
You feel a sense of pride, like over like when you see your little logo.
And like as someone that writes a lot of TypeScript, I'm kind of bummed Microsoft
that you got a bummy logo.
It's just a blue square. Like, can we get? We got to get a character.
It's a blue square with white TS. Right?
Yeah, like if you're gonna, I mean, I know that it's going to be built on Go. I think I hear that the next version. So maybe they'll just turn the Otter thing a little bit more dark blue. I don't know. We'll see. But it's that kind of thing. I think there will be a swing. Once again, the after effects, maybe this is predictive and worthless.
Yep.
But like with AI generative stuff, people are going to be looking for the human element of things and the expressive element of things.
This is huge. So I think for every, I don't remember where I heard this from. I think there's a podcast called My First Million. Sean Parr, and I'm forgetting the second host. But really funny podcast that I listen to. I haven't made $1 million, so like, obviously it's not my first million yet. But one of the things that they talked about, they were just talking about like investment opportunities. And so he's like, if I was, in this space right now, and they weren't even talking about AI, they were talking about something else. Actually, no, they were talking about AI, but he was like, for every trend, there's always like an anti-trend.
Yeah.
And so he's like, basically, if you use AI as an example, he's like, AI generating content with AI is the trend because it makes a lot of things more scalable and easier and like whatever. The anti-trend to that is a lot of people, I don't want your AI slop. Like AI generated videos, like sometimes they're funny, but depending on like the thing.
That's about it though.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're just sometimes funny.
Depending on what it is. Value. I'm like, I actually don't want like, even if like the video was so good that it like fakes me out, I would be upset to learn that like you did that.
Yeah.
Like I would act like if there was an account who was following like really good stuff, like an AI influencer that I would just like really look up to and I thought was awesome.
Yeah.
And then I found out that it was AI, I would unfollow like immediately because I would be like, I don't know. Like I want that connection with, I feel something with this like person or with this thing that you have just taken away from me.
Yeah.
That I don't like. And so like, I think that is the anti-trend is like in the world of the continual AI. And like we call it, like I say AI slop now, but I'm like, it's probably pretty good.
Yeah.
Like, it's only going to get better. So it's not really slop, but like, it just feels like this, I don't know. I'm like, I just don't want it.
The dead
like,
internet.
I'm on the other end of that where I'm like, no, I would like to talk to a normal person writing stuff on their own, recording stuff like this.
Do we sound like dinosaurs saying that though? Like,
back in my day, you had to write all your own stuff.
I just wonder, like, I'm afraid, but at the same time, like, I'm not, because it is how I feel. Like, in 10 years, will I look back and be like, wow, what a bad take?
Yeah.
Or will it be like...
Very possible. Very possible.
But I feel the same way. I think that, once again, I think we mentioned this earlier, like, there are spaces that prioritize human creativity.
Yep.
And then there are spaces that prioritize, like, just volume.
Yep.
And I think you will see, like, the spaces that don't index on volume of content start to actually gain a little bit more traction.
Yeah. This actually, maybe I'm hijacking this topic, but this actually leads right into something that I wanted to talk about, which is the man in the arena.
Yeah.
There's a quote, and I want to like pull it up so I can actually read the whole thing. There's a quote by Teddy Roosevelt. Let's see. The core idea comes from, what's up?
You take my charger.
Which one?
The box.
He's got like 17 over here.
Can I trade you?
Yeah.
Dude, you thief. Can't do that.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's fine.
Anyway, so this phrase, the man in the arena, comes from Roosevelt. And there's a speech from 1910 called Citizenship in a Republic, delivered at the Sorbonne in Paris. And the full quote is, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat." And so like I'm kind of like wrapping our last little segment up in a bow, because I'm like, even though I was calling it AI slop, I'm like, if you're operating in that space, like you're the man in the arena, and you should take my opinion with like, you know, a grain of salt. And obviously like vice versa. If I'm campaigning for like the non-AI future, where like it's just like genuine human interaction, then like I feel like I'm very much, you know, we are the men in the arena, or the people in the arena for that space. And if you think AI is the future, I obviously don't have to listen to you. But like I think there's a lot of value in that. There's something that we've kind of discovered as we've been building in public, which is kind of the topic of what we've been talking about, is that people are going to have all sorts of opinions on what you do and how you should do it. And bluntly, if they are not in the arena with you, then I'm like, who cares? Like, I don't care what you think. And like, obviously there is some line between like ignoring legitimate advice from knowledgeable people, but there's also a lot of not knowledgeable people, or even knowledgeable people that may just have a different opinion, and like you get to choose whether or not you're gonna like, you know, give heed to that sort of thing. We had an experience when we launched the beta for Bookends, the paid beta for Bookends. And I would love to include a screenshot, maybe like somewhere right here, of this Reddit post, obviously with the username of the person, you know, crossed
obfuscated.
out. Obfuscated. But when Chad and I first launched the beta for Bookends, so we were building in silent mode, basically, had something that was ready to turn over to like real users. And then we went live, and pretty much like the morning or the night before, it was the night before, because we put the marketing site up. We were on stuff like Product Hunt. We had like no following basically, and I think we had like 30 followers on Instagram. So like not the word was not going to get out super strongly about like our thing. And so I was on Reddit just like doing some grassroots guerrilla marketing, just like going into different like Reddit threads and just like,
this guy's a soldier,
shouting us out like, oh shoot, like have you checked out Bookends? That's crazy. Like looking for a cool book app? Yeah, Bookends is really cool, I hear. And so I went into this marketing thread and I posted the link to our marketing page that I had put up. Like, so like I was the one who like coded the thing for the page. And then I just posted it in there and I was like, hey, like we're launching our beta tomorrow. Anyone have any feedback? And like I got a bunch of responses. It was so funny. And one of them was like, because we had basically when you landed on the landing page, we had like some messaging, some value prop stuff, and then like pricing. Like that was the call to action, was a big old like buy now thing. And it was $10 for the beta. You got lifetime access to the app even after the beta, but it was $10 just to like download an app that you had no guarantee if it was going to work or not. You had no idea. Like it could have just been like a rug pull, like whatever. And then like there was some other stuff on the website, like some screenshots of the UI. It does not look like it does right now. Or it did not look like it does right now. And one of the people that commented back in Reddit was like, you're not ready for launch. People can't buy this. Like you can't sell people. What was it? They literally said like, you can't charge for a beta or something like that. It was like, you can't charge people for like a beta. You can't make them pay money for it. Camera ran out of memory. But jumping back in, basically man in the arena. Yeah. This person from Reddit was like, you can't charge for a beta. And we did charge for beta, and people obviously paid for the beta.
It was like a unique strategy. I mean, I don't think you see that, especially like with the distribution method. Like any of our founding customers, as we're calling them, you guys know, like this was not a straightforward process to getting access to the app.
So much friction. If any of you watching have ever downloaded an app from Test Flight, it is like incredibly filled with friction. Yeah.
And like lots of potential problems. But we figured it out, and it was fun. It was like a cool way to distribute the app and to see people start to use it and to figure out stuff early. And I think too, like I remember talking about pricing with you, and I was so hesitant, but Andy reads a lot of books about how to do this stuff. And luckily, you know, he had good insight on like, well, you want to charge a price that like makes you a little nervous. And I mean, nervous enough to where other people were even like, you can't do that. You know,
which is like someone else told us don't do that.
Which is pretty crazy, but so glad you read that book, because what it does when you charge that is the burden of like not the burden, I guess the filtering that happens for the people that do pay for it is you get people who ideally really care.
Yep.
And I think we have seen like a pretty high percentage of like people who care about the thing that they downloaded.
Yep.
And like we wanted people that would provide feedback. Like
Yep.
that was the number one thing that we wanted, because we wanted our app store launch to be like, this is like a true functioning app. We didn't
Yep.
want to launch app store with like what some people might call an MVP.
Yep.
And hopefully like when we do launch, we can ride the win of this experiment and maybe report back and let you guys know.
Yeah.
Or maybe one day we'll look back and be like, we probably should have just gone to the app store, you know?
Yeah.
But because we waited, we also are, winning the long game because Apple's reduced. Well,
Apple tax is gone. Let's go.
Apple tax is gone. We can
Stripe for life, baby.
and we had integrated with Stripe for the beta, so now there's like less overhead for us to get the paywall up in app. So it's really kind of been a serendipitous turn of events.
Yeah.
It's not really serendipitous because it was really well informed on Andy's part, but
I did not know Apple was going to waive that tax. So that
I think he saw the future.
that part was uninformed.
You might be in some like federal court.
Yeah,
loops.
they get,
I don't know.
after this drops, I'm going to get pulled in for insider.
Yeah.
But I think the beta was super interesting. I mean, and I don't think we're even going to get to our second topic.
Yeah,
but
that's okay.
Building in public. I think it was extremely validating to have over 100 people basically give us money in exchange for something that they did not know was going to work. But like from what they had seen and like what we had posted was like for some reason compelling enough. And I think there are other reasons that we could talk about in another episode as to like, how did we get the message out there? Shout out my wife for being
for sure
number one saleswoman on that.
Dude, crazy she actually.
But yeah, it was like extremely validating to see like people would actually pay to use something that we built. And it was cool. Like Chad was saying that like in a beta, we really want people who are committed enough and who want to use it enough that they would like care enough to give feedback, which is like definitely what we've gotten. And that's been super, super great. So like, even though it was a little nerve wracking, like, what right do we have to charge people money for this thing?
It's it's the first time I've ever done that.
Yes.
I don't know if it's the first
I've never
time
made money off of anything in my life. I'm a W-2 slave. So that's
crazy.
This was the first time that anyone that I had ever done something like that. But like, it is kind of, it's like a little drug. You're like, oh shoot, like, wait, you like it?
And I think it was
you want to pay me for it?
You just assume that it's like, there's no way I could build software that's worth money. And like, if there's any message that we want to convey, it's like, no, you literally can.
You can be doing that.
And like, we're just a couple goofballs who had like a fun idea, and we're like literally building something that's just fun. And like,
this is $1 billion company. This is
we're gonna sell. We're gonna sell and make a gazillion dollars.
Goodreads, you're gonna end up trying to buy me out.
No, you can't buy us out. I will never sell my soul.
Product would lose its integrity and be a piece of crap, just like Goodreads is.
But like, I think the other side of this, and maybe this is the last thing because I know we've been yapping for a while, but like, people paying you like was that extra spark that convinced me that like, oh, we're onto something.
This is real.
We're onto something. And two, I have to get my act together because now there's an expectation.
There's people that paid for it.
Like, I think the bar just like literally in a second that the first sale came through was like a shift of my mindset of like, oh shoot.
It made it extremely real.
Yeah. And like the list in my head of things that I needed to go fix transferred immediately. And it wasn't even creating all the infrastructure to support the selling of the thing didn't trigger that thought process. It wasn't until there was actually a sale that like my brain shifted into, wait, what are they going to experience from a customer downloading it the first time?
Yep.
And maybe that's like a shortcoming on my part, but at the same time,
it is.
You like, there's certain things that you can't know until you know them, you know? That was one of those things.
And it was like, it was the perfect place to learn it. And it was really interesting. Like, all these things, because we had this discussion after like the week that it went on sale. I remember us talking about this, and I don't remember exactly like in specific what was discussed, but it was like along those lines where it was like, all of a sudden, all this stuff that we had not thought about previously was like, oh shoot, how do we do this? Do we handle this? Like, what happens if they do this? It was like all this stuff that it was like, for some reason, whatever, like it had no all the time that we had spent thinking about this thing prior to that point, it had not triggered like these thoughts. But all of a sudden, when someone had paid for it, like the frame just shifted. And I also think like one of the benefits of that is you can get caught in like builder mode limbo.
Totally.
Where you're just like, oh, just one more. You're like a druggie. You're a junkie that's like, just one more feature. Just one more feature.
And we were doing like, that was the conversation we had the day before we launched. It was like, we should just do it.
Yeah. It's like, just one more thing and it'll be good. But it's like, no. We should just do it. Yeah. And then like just validate. Because otherwise, like the worst case scenario is you spend even more time building the thing and find out no one is willing to pay for it. And like that sucks equally bad. And like I think we're very privileged to have a lot of things go our way in terms of on the distribution side. Like I think that was for us like a major key that has changed the way that we've thought about some things after that.
Yeah.
So like not everybody gets to like enjoy that luxury. But I will say, in getting it out there, trying to get people to like convert on it and stuff like that, just completely shifted us away from like, oh, we're not just going to wait, to build another feature to like get people to pay for the thing. Like we could just get it now, and then we can improve it with them. Yeah. So there's a ton of value that came from that experience.
Yeah, there's like an interesting paradox of like the builder who thinks about the thing all day long, and then the user who thinks about it for 5 minutes, and like. When people pay for it and you start developing, this is like tying back into our community conversation, that marriage is so healthy because it's like, oh, I've been turning my wheels all day on how this thing should work and I couldn't make up my mind. But the second I got it in front of a user who just like knows how to intuitively use the thing, it became so clear.
They have an expectation of like, oh no, I would just do it this way.
Yeah.
Or they'll even tell you, they'll be like, oh yeah, you set it up this way, but like I tried to do this. And like immediately you should be thinking, oh wait, why did you try to do that instead of the thing that I thought? Like we think about it like way too deeply, and like their reaction to certain things is so instinctual that it's just like, oh no, like it should have been this. Like I obviously should have just done this thing.
Yeah.
But it's hard when you're not on the, on that side of it.
Yeah. And it's hard to do that with a customer who doesn't have buy-in.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But when someone has buy-in, like this is why I'm bringing this up in the pricing conversation, is like, there's that extra, incentive for both parties to make it a symbiotic relationship.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Do we want to put a cap on it there? Wrap it up with a bow?
Let's do it.
That's the end of Chadcast number 1.
Naming's hard.
Name pending. Just remember, kids, you can't charge for a beta, and naming is hard.
What are you going to do?
What are you going to do about it?
We did it.
See you next time.
Peace.